your television sets. Turn them off now. Turn them off right now. Turn them off and leave them off. Turn them off right in the middle of the sentence I'm speaking to you now. Turn them off.
Greetings, everybody. Welcome to our Severance recap. This is today we'll be covering episode 2, which is Goodbye, Miss Selvig. Kind of notice the mirror there. Hello, Miss Cobell. Goodbye, Miss Selvig. But Deandra, how's it going?
I'm good. I got the crud or something, but I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing as about as well as I can be. You know, my Eagles are about to go to another Super Bowl, but enough about us. We have a special guest here today, and you know, as long as you know we're willing to have him, he will join. Joe, the man, the legend, Joe Hova. How's it going?
Go Birds! First of all, go Birds! Glad you know what
War eagle.
No,
It's a bird. It's a bird. It's an eagle, even.
You know what? I was thinking about this before I joined, and I was like, it's nice to talk to people on a video chat that's not related to work. So it is so nice to be here and to be back doing this.
Down with themes.
Sorry for that awkward pause, because when I get a call on my phone, like, my headphones go out. So for the last 10 seconds, I have no idea what was being said. But we are back. Let's jump.
So before we got to deal with.
So I was like, all right, I have to read lips. But before we jump into the episode, I want to talk about two things. First of all, we finally get our new title sequence. I don't know if you paid close attention to that, but I want to ask you both if there was anything that like particularly jumped out in this new animation, the new title card for Severance for season 2. So Joe, I'll start with you. As you're watching, like, if you watch the open credits, that is there anything in particular that like may have jumped out in like this new animation? Because last season there was kind of like an animation of like innie and outtie Mark showing like a work-life balance. But this one had a few clues that I think could possibly let us know where this season is going.
Yeah, so this is one of the only shows I will not skip, like the title credits and stuff. Like because I know that there's like clues in there. I know that it's like premonition, basically. The one thing that stood out to me was the very, very end, where it goes to the back of his head, and then a hand reaches out, kind of like Ju-on, like The Grudge. And I was like, okay, all right, we're gonna get more character development for him as a whole person, and not just innie and outie Mark.
I like where you're going with that. D, what about you?
I have so much more to say than Joe. You're being nice. Okay. The first thing that popped out in my mind when you said what was the most impressionable thing was it seemed like the chip was pushing him out of his brain. That was the first thing. We saw the baby goats again, because like when he jumped down into the skull, it turned into a goat. These are goats, right? We've all agreed they're goats.
They're goats. They're goats. Yeah,
they're goats.
The goats. Miss what do they call her now? Cobelvig. Her face illuminating over the thing. There was like a field, and then Mark is carrying Mark. It's just a whole bunch of stuff. And then there was something else at the end. Who's that crawling in front of him? Is that Kier?
Yeah, I think it's Kier.
I think so.
I can't tell. Right before he comes out of his brain, there's a big headed, well, of course the balloons, because they remind me of Runny's head. Don't his head look like one of the balloons, y'all? Anyway, but their heads like turn into the balloons, of course, which goes back to that first episode with all the balloons with Mark's face on them. But yeah, that was at the end was the craziest thing, because I think that's Kier that's crawling in front of him and shaking the snow out of his hair or whatever else. I thought that was kind of creepy. But yeah, and it seems like everybody else is there. I want to say some kind of way is integrated in the intro versus, like you said last time, it was just Mark.
Yeah. So yeah, basically, if I were to just make uneducated guesses based on that, I think what could be in play this season is that Mark might possibly do the reintegration process. And not only that, I think kind of like PD, he may jump in and out. But when he jumps like in and out, like we might have like Outie Mark finally in, Lumon.
Mm-hmm.
So I was seeing like that being played with a lot with like the chip in particular with this. So like I said, if I had to guess where this season might be going, I feel like Mark might be jumping in and out. And, innie Mark might be, on the outside, Outie Mark might be on the inside, and vice versa. So.
Well, I think they're leading to that because with Dylan's interview at the door place, like everything was going great, and then he's like, "Oh yeah, I was severed," and then they're like, "Hey, get the hell out of here."
Yeah.
Speaking of the door place, I'm not sure. Do y'all watch the end after the credits and stuff when they show like what's to come for the next?
So funny story. I try every single time I try to for some reason,
and it goes to Silo.
It jumps straight to Silo, and then I try to find it again, and I can't. I'm like, yes, I want to watch Silo, but not right now. You told me there's footage at the end, but you won't let me watch it.
Yeah. I asked that to ask because yes, mine always jumps Silo, but I'm determined. Like you don't tell me what to do, Apple TV. I tell you what I want to watch. So I had to go back to it, and the last time they showed the scene with him and the Doors interview person sitting next to each other. Now, then I didn't look close enough, so it looked like Dylan was talking to himself. And I was like, oh, well, that's kind of creepy because how can they do that? He's still one person, but now I realize it was all a mind thing in the first place, which was really cool. Like that was a great idea to throw it in there, knowing that that's not what it was, but that some people would assume it was. And to the end, I think they do a good job. They show just enough to keep you like, oh, okay, well, this will make sense, but it's also enough that it doesn't mean anything of what you think it will.
Right.
Yeah. Did you watch this?
So
one? You didn't watch this one, did you?
I know I did it, but before, all right. So before
we jump. Wait, sorry. Before I forget though, sorry. You brought up reintegration. I wanted to ask y'all, what do you think that they're doing? Because obviously the chip is still in there, so it's not like they're taking it out. Are they giving them some sort of like what is she doing to counter it? Because PD very clearly still had the chip in his brain because we saw her remove. We saw Kobelvik remove.
If I had to guess, it would be like reverse engineering. Obviously, the chip is working like a computer chip. So if Rigabi like programmed the chip, then she could then like deprogram it. But like I kind of alluded to last week, like not to go into computer science, but it's almost like fragmentation. So I feel like even if you deprogram the chip, some of that is still like in your consciousness, kind of like parts of your innie parts of your outie are in your innie. If there's like one particular thing, like I want to see if you guys picked up later, but that's what I think might be going on there. I think Rigabi has the ability to kind of like deprogram the chip. Maybe there's like something like she could do remotely to not have to go in the head, but which would be weird. But yeah, like maybe she can deprogram the chip.
But if they have the OTC, that makes sense. So it has to be a way to do it, right? So that doesn't that's not too far fetched. That can be a remote way to do it. Ooh, keep that in mind when we talk about your elevator thing.
Okay. Yeah, because I do have an elevator thing. But yeah, what I want to also get into is and I'm not here to tell anyone how to watch, TV, but in my opinion, since this is no, I'm not. I just think some of the ways people watch TV is stupid.
About how to watch movies.
Well, yes, guilty. But in a visual medium, cinematography matters, and we've all been talking about this, and I wanted to bring up two particular moments because how they are shot are like visual clues. The first of which, and I know I'm doing a lot of dance before we get into general impressions, but these things just really stand out to me. But
he's excited.
The scene where you see Helly going down one hallway, and then you see Milchik by the way, I've been calling this man Milchick the entire time. It's Milchick. But they're going down opposite ends of the hallway, and you see the vision from the outside of like the glass windows. So, in my opinion, that is to show us, because it's kind of like insidious in nature too, but that's to show us how, like, quite literally and figuratively, how high up Helly R actually is. Excuse me, Helena. So that is to show you that she is like a big dog. Like when they're doing that. Also, I don't know if you guys noticed when Milchick goes to see Dylan and he's driving through the cul-de-sac. Do you notice that, in the center it makes the Lumon logo?
I noticed the weird look, but I didn't notice it was Lumon.
Yeah.
Everything is Lumon. That is crazy.
Like the drop. So could Dylan possibly be living in Lumon housing as well? So I just wanted to say that too. Like, as you're just gonna sound, this is gonna sound like such a silly thing to say, but as you're watching the show, watch the show, because there are like lots of visual clues as well. Like things are shot, Ben Stiller and company, they shoot things in a very particular way, because like not only are they trying to like tell you something with like dialogue and exposition, but they're also trying to tell you something with like how they shoot and frame particular things as well. So just wanted to toss that out there. Now, general impressions. What do you think about this episode? D, we'll start with you.
I don't really know. Like I don't know. We just got to talk about it. It's just so many things that I have to say that I just think I just end up talking about the episode. But I enjoyed it.
I'm so glad we brought somebody else here so I can have a fruitful conversation. Joe, what did you think about the episode?
So I liked it more than the first episode.
Don't come on here showing out, Joe.
But I watched them back to back because I was sick last weekend, so I didn't even really like care. So like I watched them back to back yesterday, and the first episode is cool, but it's like it's like a hey, we got to get the gang back together and all that kind of stuff, and it's like that's it's great, it's still great because of the way they did it, but also it's like okay. But this one stood out to me because it's rehashing everything from episode 1 and then also the finale from last year. Or what was that? 3 years ago at this point?
3 years ago. Yeah, 3 years ago. It's been 84
years.
I'm really intrigued by the kind of the new guy that's kind of in Lumon, like the big dude.
Drummond.
Mr. Drummond,
Did he replace Granger? Is that who he is? He's the new security guy, the one that she killed. Okay, what's her name? Ronnie, say her name. The doctor.
Ragabi.
The one that Ragabi killed is Granger. Is that who Drummond is replacing, or is he always just been security?
So
because he doesn't seem new.
He could very well have been security, but they've just elevated him because naturally, like Milchick would have been head of security, but he jumped straight to floor manager. So
manager.
The other thing about this that I really was intrigued by was they said, okay, it's been 5 months. This happened 5 months ago. But again, that's another lie, because like once you see, it's been like 2-3 days. It's literally like days after the events of the season finale.
3 days. And they make it a point to show us that it was 3 days. They make it a point because unless the time between Mark deciding to come back and the event was 5 months. It doesn't seem that way.
No.
It doesn't seem that way. Because I don't think Mark went back to work the next day, because Milchick had to come back and ask him again.
Yep.
But it didn't feel like 5 months.
No.
But
it was definitely like the next week.
For their, I guess, whatever, if somebody would say that's a plot hole or whatever, then they have an out, I guess you can say, because they can say, well, no, the time between here and there. But they don't make it appear that it's been 5 months. I'm with you. So even if it wasn't 3 days, it still didn't seem like 5 months.
Well, and it just goes to show that like even through all of these reformants or whatever that they're doing, like they're still lying. Like Lumon is still like lying to these people because the innies can't prove that it's been 5 months. They just they get on the elevator and they come back down on the elevator.
Because they don't know to come out and be like, well, they said it was 3 months. I have a question. Speaking of security, because you were saying that Milchick probably would have gone, and by the way, I've always pronounced his name correctly. I just want to throw that out there. From the beginning, you said he probably would have gone directly. I mean, he would have gone to security next, you think? Why don't they know Cobell, but they know Milchick? All of them know Milchick. The Outties, I mean.
Yeah, that's a good point.
But they don't know Cobell because Mark knew her. She's the boss. But I'm saying, like, when Milchick came to the house, it was just like, oh, hey, Mr. Milchick, and everything was fine. It wasn't a question. It wasn't surprising or anything. But Cobell had a whole other name. Like, why didn't they know her anyway? Especially since she's there. I would assume she had some part in the hiring. Maybe.
So, maybe not. So I'm gonna say this. So, considering that he is part of security, like and he possibly like during onboarding gets them the credentials to the building. Like we know that they have to like know him because he was in on the interview process. He was in on the onboarding.
Oh, and
now I think the reason why Selvig / Cobell is like only close to Mark is because I think it has something specifically to do with Mark. I think she was placed directly next to Mark, or she decided to live next to Mark specifically for a Mark related reason, and not the throuple, by the way, not the throuple reason. It's not because they want to engage in a throuple, but I do think it has something to do with that. And
arguments for both.
So all I'm saying. So yeah, obviously they wanted to like keep an extra level of like surveillance on Mark for a particular reason. What the reason is, we don't know, but we do know enough to know that while her staying next to Mark isn't necessarily like a bad thing, everyone involved thinks that she may have grown overzealous and overstepped her boundaries by doing the lactation thing. Of course, they think that after the fact, because as you're doing this, you'll go through any means to keep surveillance on an employee for some reason. So I say all that to say, like, I think the reason why they don't know Cobell on the outside is because it's a Mark related reason, Mark specific reason. But of course they know Milchick because he did the onboarding.
Do you think he did the same process with the rest of them like he did with Helly? Because he was there with her from the beginning. I thought that was special because of who she was, but maybe that's just his job. Like maybe he did that for all of them. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Because even Mark was like kind of like, yeah, it took me a few times to when he was going in and out the door. Yeah. So
okay, I buy it.
All right, so I think I want to start with let's just start at the top. So I think it's great that just from a stance of like creating tension in the show that Devin actually is skeptical, because you need one person on the side who's going to be like your skeptic, and Mark isn't even the skeptic anymore. So I do think it's interesting that Devin is now skeptic, and that scene where like they're at the table with Milchick is like a really good scene because Tramiel, I can't think of his last name. But his Tramiel is his first name. Tramiel Tillman. Yeah, he's such a great actor because he does like the Gustavo Fring thing where I'm being like overly nice to the point like, hey, I'm being nice because like I could destroy you if I wanted to. Like, so he's like really good at that. So yeah, what do you think of like, I guess, Mark's by the way, when I say Mark, I mean like Outie Mark. What do you think about Outie Mark's reaction to like all of this regarding like, he said some nasty things to, Devin. So like, what do you think about like, I guess, his interaction after that and kind of the whole like, hey, drop it, like my wife is dead, like I've seen her dead. Like, what do you think about that?
But it's like when he said, like, I can, excuse me, I can understand it when he's saying that stuff because it's like, everybody processes grief differently.
Mhm.
So
Right.
it's like, you know, her saying like, oh yeah, hey, I lost somebody too, da 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 da. Yeah, you're grieving, but you're not going to grieve the exact same way that the person who was like married to that person is going to grieve.
Mhm.
So I think his outburst for that was just like, there's some unresolved stuff there about, like, obviously we don't know what happened. They're just always saying like, oh, she got in a car crash and her body burned up and da 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 da. But that's got to be like a decoy, because we obviously see her at Lumon in the severed floor. So there's something there that, like, not all of this has been processed 100% for him, especially. So I think with Mark, I think that it's a lot of like, because his whole reason of going to Lumon was because he was depressed. He was like, I just need to get away. I need to go, you know, I can't sleep for 24 hours, so I can go do this job for 8 hours. I can sleep for 8, and then I don't have to be up that often and deal with it. So I think a lot of it is he still hasn't dealt with it.
Yeah.
I think there's absolutely, like, there's no question about that at all. And I'm glad you said the sleep thing, because last week we were talking about him grieving, and I'm like, I get you wanting the day to go faster, but you can't heal. You still, time is what heals, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you're away for 8 hours, it's not like you know what's happening those 8 hours. So it's not like you're getting therapy and then you come home and you feel better. You have to do the work in order to feel better. But when Milchick said you felt like every day was a year, I'm like, okay, well, it makes perfect sense now. Because anything to shorten the amount of time I have to be conscious and think of her is what I'm willing to do. Because you think, you know, you sleep 8 hours, then he goes to work 8 hours. That's all that's left for him is 16. Am I doing my math right? It's 8 more hours. Y'all say yeah. Hours. You can function. You know what I mean?
I was almost about to call out your profession out here. I was about to say,
really?
really?
Both of y'all like, yeah. But it's 8 hours left, and you can function, you know, for 8 hours. And I guess that if your day feels like a year and you can shrink that down to a week, you know, he'll take it. If that's how painful it is. I do think it's very selfish of him to dismiss Devin. Again, I understand why. You can't. I've learned recently, due to loss, you really don't control yourself in that time. Like you are outside of yourself. No matter how much you think you can or how strong you are, if the grief hits, that's just what it's gonna do. So I've seen him enough to know that he truly loves his sister, and he wouldn't try to hurt her, but he couldn't stop what was coming out his mouth at the time because he was so angry at the thought of somebody else feeling worse than I feel, almost. Like how dare anybody think they can feel like me, because I'm the one that was married to her. Nobody can be feeling what I am, but she possibly can because she lost her sister. You know what I mean? So I think I think it's fair to say we can just 100% say he hasn't dealt with it. The fact that her body was burned, or he said he had to identify her body, my first thought was, well, did you though? Like what did you identify? Was there some kind of birthmark or something? Because if people are burned, they usually go to dental records, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know what he could have identified. I don't know. I'm very curious to see how that turns out in the end, because you can fake a dead body, especially somebody that's grieving.
Something is definitely up there, because the fact that we know the state of her body, like we know enough to know now, like he identified a body, but not necessarily her. So I think that was like the inclusion of that little detail was like interesting as well, because like she was like so disfigured to the fact that, you know, I'm glad they mentioned that, because now like we're starting to like see a picture of like, was that really her? Don't think so.
And going back to the Kobelvig thing, I feel like that's why she was assigned to be so close to him, because there's some sort of cover up there that they didn't want him to find out.
I buy it too.
Yeah, and to stay with Mark a bit, but to jump ahead, I do think it's like pretty predatory how, because we were wondering last week, how did they lure him back after everything he's done? But they basically lured him back with like, hey, like, you found love in there. And then Mark was like, well, as this deeply broken person who needs love, let me go at least have love in there. I'm extrapolating, by the way, but you could kind of tell that's kind of like what lured him back. And yeah, that's just so yeah, that's so predatory. Yeah.
Yeah,
Predatory,
it's just
disgusting.
like, yeah, disgusting is a good word, because again, Tramiel, it's not Tramiel. It's but we know it's an acting choice, but it's a great one because he did it with a very soft, sincere. You found love in there, man. Like,
yeah,
and it's nothing compared to this dead beat beast of a man that I see right now. Like, goodness gracious. I mean, he wasn't that harsh, but that's what I heard. You know what I mean?
Yeah, essentially,
like, almost like, this is he's way better than this. Whatever you got going on out here, this ain't it. So let your innie be happy, because this is no. And it's
also,
like you said, that's just mean.
Also, it's like I want to mention this too as a quick aside. This show is like so unintentionally funny because the gift that he presents them with to bring them back. I hate to ask this, but do y'all know what pineapples represent? Okay, yeah.
I'll put it down.
Yeah.
It was right side up, which was funny to me, but I was just hoping that that it would fall or that something like, because we all know. We know.
Yeah. So
not
yeah, if you ever go on like a cruise or anything, don't put on like, the pineapple Hawaiian shirt. Do not put that on because people will think a certain thing.
Do not put that in your shopping cart.
Don't put it in your cart.
Do not. No, absolutely not. You will find out the wrong way. But yeah, so I want to jump to or the right way. But yeah, I want to jump to Dylan now. Because that once again, very funny scene. That scene was funny in particular. But this is what I mean when I say like a bit of the Outie's personalities jump into like the innies. Because when he called his wife, he was like, "Do we need more baby wipies?" I was like, it's not the two people aren't so dissimilar because they're still talking the same. Like you can't totally erase a person. So I think these little moments show us that, like, even if you're Outie or innie are like technically two different people, like your entire personality isn't going to be wiped away by this process because that was still very much his like personality. So yeah, but no, that scene where he's like, in there interviewing for the door position. It was just so unintentionally funny because they were so serious about those doors, man.
I don't think it was unintentional. I think they were very intentionally trying to make it funny in the best way. And also the door that he chose, the pocket door, that's Dylan. Just like the dude said, you do what you need to do and then you tuck yourself away.
The pocket door, yeah.
Yeah, that's what it is. That sounds like Dylan. You can even tell when he's inside, like his innie, all the finger traps and all the stuff that he got in his accomplishments and all of these things, you could just tell that they were things he wanted because he wants to be recognized. So that's that's him all day.
Also tossing this out there too, like that was a little Easter egg for you because the reason why they chose a door factory is because the creator of the show, Dan Erickson, was working at a door factory while he was writing Severance. So they inserted that as like a very meta Easter egg. So yeah, that was cool.
And Dee, what you were talking about, like the little after show thing about like how Dylan, it looks like he's talking like to himself or alone or whatever. And I picked up on that when he was talking with like the actual manager. I was like, this is future Dylan in like 25 years.
That's crazy.
So that makes a lot of sense.
And they're just really cool about putting that stuff in there. And then as far as like the door part too, when they were like, they make their doors in house, I'm like, it sounds like another place I know.
Yeah.
Should have been on Prime. That would have been wow.
Yeah. Now I want to jump to before we get to, because we're going to circle back to Mark when we get to Cold Harbor.
Are we off Dylan? Because I got a question if we are.
Oh, go ahead. Well, go ahead.
Is his wife sick, or was he worried about benefits and stuff because of the baby?
I think it's the baby.
You think it's the baby? Okay.
Yeah, it was the baby. Yeah,
because I was thinking she was sick at first, and then when he was mean to her when she called, I was like, well, she can't be sick because he wouldn't be that much of a dick. Like if she's sick, you got to be nice to her. You got to be nice. And then he asked about the baby. I was like, okay, it's the baby because them jokers are expensive.
But yeah. Anyway. So let's jump to Bert now, because I thought it was very interesting that Bert went to, he had to pull, Avon from The Wire. He had to go to, the phone booth to talk, and I was leading about
Irving, right?
Irving now, yeah. So I was like led to believe that maybe he was talking to Bert, but we see Bert in the car, watching him. So the question is, who could he have possibly been talking to? Because he was like, yeah, my Audi. No, he was like, my innie got the message, right?
He got the message, yeah. But along with that, I noticed too, because he pretty much lied to Milchick because he asked was anything on. He was like, oh no, I was just kind of chilling here. And I'm like, well, that has to be a lie, because when Irving came down the elevator, he was still beating on Bert's door, which means when Irving came out of it, that's exactly where he would have been, and he would have had to know, like, why the hell am I at Bert's? Well, not why the hell, but I'm at Bert's house. This is weird. And he saw the map, so again, he knows what's going on. But Bert didn't look happy at all when he saw it, which was strange to me. I don't know. This is still going with your theory, by the way, that he thinks they've been reset. Well, not reset. Yeah. What's the word? Reprogrammed, sent to the training floor, whatever.
Yeah, the testing floor, whatever. Yeah, I think they reset people. I think they reset people down there because and I want to go back to Bert's chest and like see what was in there, because I want to say Irving. He was like in that Irving. I keep saying Bert, it's Irving. But by the way, that's the kind of like the pneumatic device, because I don't know if y'all know, but is Bert and Ernie like that? They kind of playing on that, so that's why I mix them up so often. But yeah, with Irving's like chest underneath his bed, because I want to say like we saw stuff in there that alluded to the fact that he might have been like intelligence in the Navy.
Could he be talking to the doctor?
Like Ringabi?
Yeah. Could Irving possibly be reintegrating, which would explain why he was dreaming or whatever in the first season with that stuff?
It's
like,
possible,
could that be
because,
like so if he was following the regimen and Petey wasn't, then that would make sense for him to be able to kind of, go flow in and out, but still have some kind of issues while he was inside with the goo or whatever else, and explain why he'd be able to paint the elevator when he's outside.
Yeah, that is plausible. Yeah,
I like that.
Petey can't be the only person that reintegrated, right?
No way. No.
He can't be the only one. So I'm thinking Bert, maybe. I mean, so you got me doing it now. Maybe Irving too. And Bert, I don't know. Bert just looked annoyed. He looked really annoyed or mad. Or why would he even know to come there?
He looked very much like Christopher Walken. Like, and whenever you see Christopher Walken in a movie, he's looking like mad at somebody. Like, yeah,
he did. So I don't know. I'm thinking I'm going with that for now, for today. Maybe a reintegration for him.
Either way, we know like this isn't the first time events may have taken place for him in particular. I think we may come to learn that Bert like had a Irving that Irving may have had a part in maybe like another like Lumon uprising in the past or something. I don't know, but I feel like we're going to learn that his like particular role in this is like more important than we all know.
That could explain why he was so drawn to those pictures. I mean, outside of him being a painter as well, he knows the history. So because Joe, we talked about that kind of last week too, that like the UUR is that even if they do take parts of your brain and shut it off, so you don't, you only have these parts, there are parts of you that are always you, or code, right? That's what Ronnie was kind of alluding to with the macro. It's macro data refinement, right?
Yes.
With them, he's saying that's maybe what the numbers are. That's like rogue code, and that's what they're getting rid of.
Well, and towards the end of the episode, we see, I can't remember if it's the end of the first episode.
It's episode 1.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, where Mark's doing that, and then I just like,
By the way, Joe is great, because that is a perfect segue, because I was actually going to move to Cold Harbor, because we asked last week, like, why was it so important for Mark to come back? Like, if they did this, why not just cut ties with them and let them lose, like rip that ship out their head in the middle of the night or something? I don't know. But why was it so important for them to come back, specifically Mark? And it's because they say, like, he's very close to finishing Cold Harbor. And Joe, I'm about to blow your mind, because so there is like a very, very wild theory out there, and I can neither confirm or deny, like, but when you think about it, there's enough evidence there, and it's crazy enough that it might be true. So basically, Lumon is a Civil War era corporation that is trying to reintroduce slavery in the age of technology. And here are the clues now. Whenever you see Egan, animated Egan, he is wearing a gray Civil War type like outfit, in the animations. There are a lot of mentions to Civil War. Like, for instance, Cold Harbor was a Confederate victory. So the fact that they're currently working on Cold Harbor, like, and there's another mention too, like the town that not the town, but the institution that Mark works for, that also has ties to the Civil War. So there are like quite a few Civil War references in here. So, like, say they have to.
What I was going to say is when they're making them all watch that video, that little cartoon of like the macro data uprising or whatever, and they talk about how like Lumon was started in like the 18 whatever hundreds, and I was like, okay, and then it shows like the house, like it's literally in the same area, and it just like they've expanded. And I'm like, oh, okay. So this goes back with history.
Yeah. So, with that being said, if we had to guess, why was it so important to finish Cold Harbor? Because they mentioned Cold Harbor by name. Because everyone is working on like a set of data. Because you see, like, if you look at the computers, you can see the file names that they're working on. But they mentioned Cold Harbor by name, and it's important that Mark returns to finish Cold Harbor. So, why do we think Cold Harbor is so important?
That I don't know, because it could be anything. Because at the end of episode 1, they show the Cold Harbor or whatever, and then they show Gemma, and it's like, okay, is it about her? But if it's so important for him to come back and finish it, that's the only thing that I can think of. Is it something to do with his wife and finding out what happened there? But I don't like that.
I think my whole thought process behind it is going kind of into what Ronnie's saying about the code part. It's like, how much of a person, what's the thing, y'all, with the ship? The thing, like, how many times can you replace the parts on a ship before it's a different ship? That thing. So it's like that. That's my thought process with Gemma. Like, you keep sending her to the testing floor and removing the rogue code. How much of it do you remove before she becomes an android? Right? Like, before she's just a whole different person. And if she's a different person, we've effectively created a human robot, right? With thoughts and emotions or whatever else, or not. And we can make her whatever we want her to be. And if you can keep taking out the rogue code, the parts that you don't want for whatever reason, you can make her do whatever you want her to do. So if she was a person out here that had a family and a life or whatever else, but in here she's Miss, what was her name? Miss Casey, who just talks to these people and gets them to do whatever and gets them through the day. And then when she's done, you don't have to do anything for her other than feed her, maybe. Because, one of the first things Haley asked was, what she asked was, am I livestock? Is that what she asked? Am I livestock or something? And Mark was like, you think we make you a whole person and give you clothes and paint your nails and just to make you
just a cog in the
machine? And I'm like, well, yeah, it's actually kind of
funny that you mentioned that because yes.
Yeah.
And by the way, if I had to make a guess on it today, like that's my theory that that Lumon is basically creating like mindless drones to do like work, because now we know like the scale of their corporation is like across the world, so they're basically creating like mindless drones. But I think micro data refinement specifically might be like programming the particular people, because we do know that when we first meet Miss Casey, she's just like, yeah, I'm a few hours old,
and you can let them reproduce.
Yeah.
And then what happens then? Like, that's a whole family.
Interesting question. Yeah.
People. And they start young now because, what's her name? Mrs. Wong? She's 12. At least she looks 12.
Which I'm glad you bring that up, because Miss Wong is now a supervisor. Yeah. But I want you to pay close attention to the fact that when PD was a supervisor, his name was PD, first initial, last name. When Mark was a supervisor, his name was Mark S. But Miss Wong is Miss Wong. So
Miss Wong, Mr. Milchick, Miss Cobell.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I think, that kind of alludes to, that kind of alludes to like the separation of duties in some way. So I don't think it's like a totally insignificant detail that her name is Miss Wong and not like whatever her first name is, then H period. So
well, and that's a good point too, because like Mr. Milchick says, oh, I know you on the outside, and I know you, because he said to, what did he say to Mark, like, as an unsevered person, I have to like live with this, knowing that I did this, or whatever. So like, maybe
I locked you in a cage like an animal.
Yeah.
In a room like that. No.
So that could be the segment, is anybody who's like Mark S, Dylan G, they're all severed, but anybody with like the Mr. pronunciation,
they're not.
They're just normal ass people.
Okay. I like it. That would answer the question on whether Mrs. Wong is severed or not. Because in that case,
I don't think she's severed.
She's not.
I don't think she's severed. Yeah, I don't think she's severed.
I like it.
Yeah. So now I want to loop around to the very cool scene where it's showing everyone reporting back to work, and Dee asked you specifically if you noticed something, if you went back and watched, but not necessarily did you like see something, did you hear something? And Joe, I want to ask you too. So everyone goes up. We spend quite a time with them, putting their items into the box in their locker and then getting on the elevator. So when Haley went up the elevator, is there anything in particular that stood out with you? Because it kind of lingers there for a while. So is there anything that kind of like stuck with you as you were watching that? And I had to go back and watch it. So if it's cool if you, because it's such a minor detail, so it's cool if you didn't catch it. But like when I went back and watched it, I was like, oh.
Yeah, we were looking for it.
Yeah. Her elevator does not ding twice.
Now, another reason we were looking for it is because we've been trying to figure out if their switch happens in the elevator, like the housing is what causes it, or if somebody does something, just happens to be doing something while they're in the elevator. Real quick though, Ronnie, the problem with that is, well, no, that'll still work. I was gonna say, because why didn't they do it when Haley tried to hang herself? But maybe it's at a certain point, like the doors have to close or whatever, and they have to see it before they.
Yeah, because the elevator was still on the floor, like when she did that. So yeah. So here's the thing, Joe, that we're sticking with. So we think that the innie Haley that we saw in the first episode is actually Helena, And we think this scene is showing us that when she gets on the elevator, so you hear a ding to select the floor, then you hear a second ding when you're basically your outie becomes like your severed person, your severed innie. But when she gets on the elevator, you hear a ding to select the floor, but not the ding that she's now,
So you're thinking that she's going in
as Helena.
We think Helena's going in.
Yeah.
And other aside, okay, this might not be a big thing. I went down a rabbit hole and I didn't even know this was a thing until today. But Mark's watch was a big deal from season 1.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even notice it. The first episode he went in, it was the 4th. He came out, it was the 5th. Mm-hmm. And they were like, most people were charging to a continuity error, but they were like, nah, you don't get a continuity. Not on a close up. Like if he's got a blue shirt on and then a purple one, yeah, but not.
Also,
not
let me interject. Ben Stiller did say, like, he doesn't give a lot out, but he did say not enough people pay attention to what's in the box and the item, so that is not a mistake. And to also toss this in, I also believe that the innies aren't working 8-hour shifts either.
No, I don't either. And but and this might be a leftover from devs, but the watches are what brought that's what made me think about it at all, because I noticed that Mark changes his watch. Mm-hmm. And when they showed the transition from who was coming in and out, Irvin changed his watch too, but Dylan didn't change his and Helen didn't change hers. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, that could just be a weird coincidence. Who knows? But I was just like, I thought was just kind of odd. And then and I only brought up devs because in devs, the dude used a watch. It was a camera in the watch, and that's what ended up getting them murdered in the end or whatever else. But Dylan not changing his is what was really the most surprising for me, because Helen not changing hers and us already assuming that she's who she is didn't bother me. But Dylan not changing his, I'm like, well, maybe we're not paying enough attention to Dylan.
Mm-hmm. Because his role technically is kind of like comedic relief and stuff, but yeah. He might have something up his sleeve. Especially like, he got fired and he was like, hey, what the hell am I supposed to tell my wife? And now he's like coming back, so he's probably like, okay, I need to figure out like what the hell like is happening down there.
And again, the boy likes recognition, because mm-hmm. when they asked about the heroes, he was like, I mean, like as a group thing, or was it like one standout? This man is trying to be a star. So I don't know. It would be heartbreaking for me, because we know Helly is who she is, so that wouldn't, like, okay, we're prepared for that. Mm-hmm. But if Dylan isn't the person I think he is, that would be disappointing, especially after seeing what happened with Irvin. Because my thought was, oh, he wants Irvin to stay because he loves him so much and he's just trying to get him, but that could just be a ruse.
So let me circle back to what you presented us. So, and I'll have to go back to look at the outfits, because I want to see if this is the same day, because you see Mark checking in with Judd several times. Judd is the guy who like sits outside the elevator. Mm-hmm. So we know Mark has gone to work several times over. But at least 3 days. But mm-hmm. the first time we see them is that day one, because I wonder if this is Dylan going into the elevator with the agreement that he made, last week, or is this the first time that they're going to work, that we see them go up the elevator?
This is after the team got fired. Because remember, Obo was outside pissed.
Right.
Because he was like, 3 days, I had to break a contract in Grand Rapids. Also, did you notice that they said that they got fired? Him and other girl. And he made a point to say that his team never made quota. Never. Not once. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, oh. Which is another reason why they're like, nah, Mark's got to stay. Because there's something he's doing this because they're making quota, like him, Dylan, all of them, which again is surprising, because Dylan is the one that seems like the rock star. He's got all the finger traps now, so he's the one that's always making quota, unless this is all just motivation to get other people to do it, because they're showing it can be done. You know what I mean? Like, you drop a mole and they're like, hey, get these incentives, make it look like this is great to reach quota, to motivate other people to do it.
Yeah,
You know what I
and
mean?
I think it's important to show that too, because it shows that people like can indeed be fired, like because yeah, going back to like the original point we made, like yeah, we know that they were fired after the uprising, but if there was truly a reason why they didn't want Marquez back or didn't need Marquez back, they would not have brought him back. But they brought him back for a specific reason.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just tossing that out there. We see that people can indeed be fired, but it was never a thing with Marquez. Like the moment Milchick sees him, he's like, no, like we gotta like bring you back specifically. So just tossing that out there. D, I see in your notes, she knows something about Gemma. Who is the she?
Kobelvik, because she got mad when like she was already annoyed and she was trying to get away. If I'm in a situation and I want to be in it, and if I want to leave, then I leave. If I want to pretend that I want to leave, then I linger. You know, I get to say I fiddle with my keys. I forget something in the house. I take too long to close my trunk. I leave my window rolled down when it's 0 degrees outside, so I can hear what you got to say. So she wasn't trying to leave. It's almost like she wanted Mark to talk to her or convince her to stay or something. But as soon as she said Gemma, she lost her shit, started screaming, and almost ran him over. So she knows something. Or, once again, she got really jealous because the girl is going.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, so there's something with Cobell, because I also too, like I want to toss this out as someone who like
Eiffel Tower.
reads.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Maybe
as
she
someone
needed
who
to deliver the pineapple.
Was there a pineapple involved? You know, she was very curious.
Yeah, was that? Yeah, but yeah, I don't think we know how old Cobell really is, and I don't know if that really matters. But the fact that she calls someone a fetid moppet, which as someone who like loves like basically derogatory terms from like across the time, like that is one from like early 1900s. By the way, that's like calling someone a moppet. That's like a dirty child. Like so. I think there's something there, but I think what we might see with Cobell is because she was pissed that they offered her the promotion that's really like you're gonna shuffle papers position. So I think
she is no fool. I know that.
Yeah.
She is not.
So I think Cobell might become an ally, which will be weird.
I think she's always going to be. She's going to be on the side of Cobell because I think she's got some sort of twisted loyalty to Kier. It's almost like a religious. Well, it is religious, right?
Yeah, she has an altar. Yeah.
So
let's just say it's a cult.
It's a cult. Yeah. So it's inner, and even though there are things about it that she knows are wrong, and she wants to keep other people from it, that doesn't mean she won't adhere to the beliefs, right? Because they're inner, they're part of her. I don't know if it's something that started with. I think she said since she was a child, right? Did she not say that?
Yeah.
So she's grown up with it. It's just like any religion. I'm not gonna call it in general, but any religion, if it's something that you've grown up with and you see parts of it that aren't right, you might support a certain group of people that your religion have historically been against, but that doesn't mean that you will allow yourself those same freedoms.
Yeah.
See what I'm saying?
It's almost like if you're like to like parse it down a bit, like Catholicism, you respect the Pope, but the priest at your particular, at your particular parish, you're like, yeah, don't really like this guy. So I think she is like still bound to like Kier and the principles of Egan, but it might be the new direction that they're going in that she doesn't like. And the new direction, I mean, like, with Milchick and Haley, and she's like, yeah, I don't really like, but I am still overall loyal to Kier and Egan, Kier Egan, but it's like this new brigade that I don't, really like. But yeah, like regardless of that, like her conviction is strong though, because like she's never like mad at like, Egan is still like just them that she's mad at. So like her, yeah, it's very cultish. It's like she's still like very loyal to them. So it's definitely something there.
She mad, She's mad. She's mad.
Well,
Yeah.
I've been waiting for us to get to that point, because that's what led me to believe that she knows something about the whole Gemma Miss Casey thing.
She does.
Because of how
definitely
pissed off she got at the end and almost hit Mark with her car and stuff.
Mhm.
And it's like, what
But
are
she
you
does
not
too.
letting on?
Remember, Joe, season 1 though, she had them go to that wellness. She had Mark go to wellness, and once she saw him make that tree, she was like, "Oh no, shut this down like now," and send her back to wherever she was. Because I keep thinking that tree is what she hit. I don't know why. I just in my mind she hit the
that's
tree,
definitely
and
what
that's
it is. Yeah.
you know. But that tree just might be something significant to them. It might mean something to them. I don't know. It could just mean something.
No,
to
I
them.
definitely think she hit the tree. Yeah.
Which goes back to like your guys' point of like how much of your personality is actually stripped from the outie to the innie. Because you're at some point you're going to recognize these things, because memories are memories no matter what. Like whether they're the innie or the outie, like at some point you're going to like understand something from the outside world.
Like we said, it's like smell or a texture even, or some kind of familiar, a tune, a melody. That kind of stuff is in there, and it's always back there somewhere, and I don't know how that chip can turn that off. I don't know. It's almost like with Irving, hi kids, what's for dinner? How would he be interested inside and out about that same thing? You know what I mean? Does that make sense? Because he asked, it's the first thing he asked Milkshake. Oh goodness, what did I eat in there? Why are you so concerned about the food you eat? You know what I mean? I don't know. But that's something that's in him. That's something that he's passionate about, obviously. Or there's a joke that was made somewhere in his life that stuck with him. Just like with me, you asked me, what did the fish say when it hit the wall? And I'm going to laugh every time. He said, damn, by the way. But I'm going to laugh every time. And if I tell that same joke when I'm inside, don't you shake your head. That is comedic genius, okay? About as good as, hey, AJ.
All right, hold on. I got to text my dad that.
Just about as good as what's a ninja's favorite drink. That's number 1 right there. What? But the point is, if you hear it and it's in you, that's all I'm saying. It's something inside that doesn't matter until you hear it again. You know what I mean? So it gets back to Rickon, the you are, because which Helly is who, and it's very obvious that she's jealous. Like Helena is jealous of Helly because she's going also.
Yeah.
Tell y'all, Mark is like bloop 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 bloop.
Yeah. Mark don't even appreciate what he got. He just got all these women just throwing themselves at him, and he's just like,
knock them down, knock them down.
But no, I think we'll stop. I was about to start for closing thoughts, but yeah, I'll push it to you first. So yeah, go ahead.
Do you think Helena had the idea of going back in as her so she could experience that with Mark?
You mean like a supply room romance? No, yeah. I think she's going in to kind of like snitch, but I mean that might be a little, extra something. Who knows? She might be like, she might be in the like line. Let me squash this, but I don't know. We will definitely see.
I don't think she's trying to squash it at all. I mean, she might be trying to squash it, but not in that way.
So next episode, she brings a pineapple downstairs.
She's taking some pineapples. You see who was bothering for the pineapples in the video? You saw who it was. Somebody's getting some pineapples.
But Joey, got any closing thoughts?
I am like this show every time I watch it. Like, and I need to go back and rewatch season 1 still because I still haven't done that. But it leaves you with more questions than answers with every episode, and most shows would frustrate the hell out of me if that happened. Like, but they do it in such a great way because they're giving you the little breadcrumbs to answer some of the things, and they're like, nope, this is leading to another big thing. It's like, okay, you're keeping me interested. So yeah, I'm really excited that it's back after 3 years.
Yeah.
84 years.
It's been 84 years. But I still I feel like we're getting closer, like what you said about the macro data refinery and the numbers and stuff. That was like my big thing, like when season 1 ended. I was like, what are they doing with these numbers? And I think we're about to really find out. And I really like that theory of like, oh, they're trying to build mindless slaves.
Yeah.
I think we have to give credit to Lost for the way a lot of shows, not giving them all credit because some people just write well, but I give credit to Lost for shows that have an idea and like, hey, if nothing else, we've got to answer these questions, because it doesn't matter how good your show is. If it ends and you have no idea how to wrap the whole reason you got into it, it just kind of falls apart, right? So I've noticed that from the jump, from this season, they're already answering questions. Yep. So it's even though they give you more later, that's how it's supposed to go. Like, let's at least wrap this part up, and then it'll leave this part open. But this part at least needs to be finalized. We can't just abandon this part because we moved on to something else. And it gets so big that you don't know how to end it. It seems like a lot of shows now already have it, the idea, like, no matter how many seasons we have, we know how we want to wrap it up. So let's not make too many other storylines so that it gets out of control. And I think that's what they're doing now, which I appreciate, because they've already answered a bunch of our questions from last season, but giving us way more to look forward to. So I'm just ready. Yep. I just hope Dylan doesn't break my heart. That's all.
Yeah. But no, I agree with each of your points. I do think it's nice to be watching a show that feels like it knows where it's going, and also that you trust that it's going to that it knows where it's going as well. Because I've watched other shows that are other mystery shows. I'm like, oh, you're just making this up as you go along. But no, it seems like they know what they're doing, and I fully trust this team. But yeah, thanks for watching our recap of episode 2, which is Goodbye, Miss Selvig. And I will leave you all with a question before we depart. What are Super Mario's overalls made out of? Denim. But yeah, with that being said, goodbye. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening.